Welcome to Speed Kolor, a podcast and YouTube channel about custom motorcycle culture. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications to get all the latest content. You can also follow Speed Kolor on Instagram. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hi there, how you doing? Welcome back to Speed Kolor. Well, what I want to talk to you about this week is I want to talk about tools. And I'll give you a little bit of background. I stumbled on to the Low Life podcast and watched a couple of their episodes, and Rhino is doing a good job. He's got something going there. Certainly there's room for growth yet. But they've got a platform. They're working it. Rhino's doing it. I forget his co-host or his guest or whatever he is. It seems to me it's Dan or something. But anyway, they're working it. They're doing a good job. So hats off to them. Good to see them doing that. But I listened to Rhino's episode. He did one about must-have tools or something like that. And it occurred to me as I listened to him that they are very much after an audience very, very similar to what I'm after. And, his advice on tools, his recommendations, was fairly basic, but it was good. And, for you guys, if anybody watches this who already knows how to fabricate and has a well-equipped shop, well, good for you, and thank you for watching. I appreciate that. But really, I think the focus, as Rhino said, is to bring new people into what we're doing, to bring new people into motorcycling. And for me, that's to bring new people into fabricating and building and doing this stuff because I'm passionate about it. I enjoy the heck out of it. And I'm not skilled. I'm not trained. There's nothing like that. I love it and I do it, and it seems to work out pretty well. So I listened to their show and I thought, you know what? There are a couple things in my shop that I really, really would like to share with people. And I'll give you a little bit of background here. So first off, and I don't know if I need to do this, but I'm going to do a bit of a disclaimer here. I'm going to talk about several companies today, products that I really, really believe in. But I will say up front, I have no partnership, no sponsorship, no professional tie to any of these companies at this point. And I'd love it if that changed, but at this point, I have no professional tie to any of them. This is strictly my experience and opinion, and that's it. I am not being paid to do any of this. So that's the first thing that I want to make sure we understand. The second thing is, I guess maybe it's worth sharing my background because I think it lends some credibility. I spent a lot of my career in the tool business. I was a district sales manager for Snap-on Tools, had a large group of dealers, did fairly well at it, and I don't think we need to go any further than that. But did well with Snap-on Tools, and after several years as a district sales manager, I decided to move back to Alberta and to buy a franchise, and I did. And you know what? I had a great time owning a franchise. That may be the most comfortable and most successful I have ever felt in my professional life, in my career. I really, really enjoyed the business. I enjoy the people. I enjoy the product. And it was really, really a good time for me. I also worked as a district sales manager for Mac Tools, Stanley Black & Decker, whatever. I mean, Stanley's a big company, but the Mac Tools division, very, very similar to Snap-on in terms of function. Quite a different product line, and I will say I thoroughly enjoyed working for Mac Tools. Good outfit. Had a lot of fun there. The fellow who hired me, the national sales manager who hired me, it was kind of interesting. I'll never forget something he said to me probably about 6 months into the job. We were together, just visiting, and he said to me, I knew when I hired you that you knew the tool business. He said, I had no idea how well you knew the tool business. And that was a real compliment. I really appreciated that, because I do know the business and I do know the people, and I understand the scheme of things. And unfortunately at Mac Tools, anyway, it didn't work out towards the end, which was unfortunate. And I think you could chalk it up to maybe some poor upper management. But you know what? It didn't work out, and I moved on. And I've spent the last part of my career, the last 10 years now, in the motorcycle industry, which certainly is not a bad place to be. But I will say, for me, I've probably never enjoyed anything that I've done as much as I enjoyed being in the tool business, and specifically in the dealer franchisee world of the tool business. The mobile tool business is fascinating, and it's kind of the last hurrah. The Fuller Brush man is gone, and the Avon lady, and door-to-door stuff is pretty much non-existent, except for tool trucks, and that's still a call. Yeah, you're going to a business, but it's still a door-to-door thing, and I just think it's really cool, and it works, and it has purpose, and it needs to be there, and it needs to be that way. So that's my background. I'll be honest with you, this setting up for this episode got me thinking, and this is an interesting question that I do not have an answer for right now, but I'm going to try and figure it out. Do I love building because I love tools, or do I love tools because I love to build? And I got to be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that right now. I definitely, I love tools. I have a passion for it. I understand them. I'm that tool nerd who would sit down and read the catalog cover to cover. And when I was done, I'd start on page 1 and read it again. And, I like to think that I knew the product pretty well. I guess I still know the product pretty well. But it was a great time. And like I say, I connected with the people. Everybody's different. Yeah, I get it. But there really are certain people who are drawn to automotive technician, other types of technicians, millwrights, that kind of stuff, compressor engineers, technicians. I'm not even sure what they call them. So anyway, that's my background. That's what a big part of my life was. And hopefully that's what gives me a little bit of credibility to speak about tools. So what I want to do today, I want to show you a couple different things in my shop. And this is not an extensive list, and this is not in priority of anything you should buy. These are just things that I find very, very useful, that I use a lot, and they really make life better in the shop. There's all kinds of other stuff that I use all the time, and I mean, my ratcheting wrenches. Of course I use them all the time. I don't need to tell you about them. I think pretty much everybody knows about ratcheting wrenches. And there's probably 1,000 or more YouTube videos with a list of the tools that are essential for a shop, and ratcheting wrenches would be on there. So I don't want to tell you about the really common stuff, but there are a couple of things that I find really useful. And I want to talk to you about those. So the first one, is it going to be the first one that I'm going to talk to you about? Maybe it won't be. Anyway, what I'm going to do is get set up. I don't know which order these are going to come up in the episode when I edit it. For sure. I think I know, but I don't know for sure. Anyway, I'm going to get set up to show you the MultiTool grinder and tell you a little bit of my history with this product. And I gathered together some things here and some different belts and stuff. And I'm going to get set up, and we're going to walk through this and do a little bit of hands-on with it. So give me a minute to get everything arranged, and I'll be back.
Okay, we're going to try this again. Funny story for you. So I sat down and I did this part of the video. I recorded it. And then I took a few minutes, sat down and watched it and listened to it, and realized that if anybody's listening to the podcast, they will have no freaking idea what I'm doing or what I'm talking about. So I'm going to do this again. I apologize. Oh man, this is tough. And on that note, I'll say that this is a very visual episode. And if you're listening to the podcast, I appreciate you so much. I love that you're there. And I try to make this as good as I can for both platforms. But this is really a YouTube video kind of episode. You know, when I'm showing things live, when I'm doing things live, or not live, but when I'm recording actually doing things, there's only so much explanation you can do. So I try. Please understand that it's natural. You just you assume that people are seeing what you're doing, and some things are just really difficult to explain. But we're going to do our best. In case you're listening to the podcast, and if you are listening to the podcast, if you get time, go check out the YouTube channel. It's a great platform and works well for me. And that is definitely where the vast majority of my audience is. So there we go. That's all said and out of the way. What I want to show you is called Drill Rite. And Drill Rite, sorry, let me just get a hold of this. Drill Rite, and I'll try to stop shaking a bit there. Drill Rite, I got this from Trick Tools. Great people over at Trick Tools, love it. What a Drill Rite is, so if you've ever tried to drill hot rod chassis, race car chassis, any kind of round tubing, motorcycle frame, anything like that, you know it can be really tough to drill a hole in a round piece of tubing. The bit might skate around on you. It's tough to get it lined up and get it at the right angle, in the right position and everything. So this device is essentially it's a V-block. In this case, it's aluminum. And it has a top clamp that you tighten down with a couple wing nuts to tighten it down on the tube. And it'll go up to Does it tell me what size it doesn't tell me on the label what size it'll go up to, but it'll go up to a fairly decent size of tube. I'm going to guess, well over 1.5 inches, I would expect. But you could look it up on Trick Tool's website. I'm sure all those specs are there. So I bought this thing. What it does, or what it has on it, you've got the V block, and then in the V block, they've drilled it and put a what I'm going to guess is a hardened steel bushing in there for a 3/16 drill bit. And the way it works is you clamp this thing onto the tube and line up the bushing where you need to drill your hole. And then, of course, where you attach it around the tube is going to line up at what angle on the tube you're putting the you're making the hole you're drilling. The bushing is, and the center of the bushing is just about a 1/2 inch from the edge of the tool. I'm not sure why it's not exactly 1/2 inch, and maybe it's me, but when I measured it, I'm coming up just shy, like, what would that be, 15-30 seconds, something like that. So it's just shy of 1/2 inch. So what I do when I know where I want my hole, then I measure over that 15-30 seconds, make a line, and then I can line up the edge of the V block, which I can see. I line up the edge, and I know that I'm centered where my hole is supposed to be. This thing's really easy to attach, locks down real well, no issues there. I was going to mention about the bushing, so that hardened steel bushing in there, I ordered an extra when I ordered mine. I also ordered, I think there's 2 other sizes of drill bit they have, and I ordered both of those bushings as well, so I'd have everything. I haven't used anything other than the 3/16 at this point. 3/16 seems to be a good size to work with. In this case, actually, let me go back to the bushing for a second. Something that you need to understand about drill bits only drill or only take material on the end. The sides of drill bits do not cut. That's why this bushing works, is all the flutes on a drill bit do is pull the material away from the point or the end where it's cutting. The flutes on the side, those edges don't actually cut material. So this bushing, nothing's cutting into it. It's fine. It's just keeping the drill bit centered and stable while you're drilling. In this case, what I'm doing, sorry about the crashing there. In this case, what I'm doing on the frame is I'm drilling, in the end, I'm drilling a 1/2 inch hole, but I'm starting with a 3/16. And this is for a top hat bung to sink it in there, weld it on, and I'm mounting this solenoid, which I'm showing you on the camera right now. I'm mounting this solenoid using 2 top hat bungs in the frame. So to do that, to get those top hat bungs in there, I need a couple 1/2 inch holes. And of course, I want them right, I want the flat surface of the top hat to be straight up and down. So I need the holes directly out the side of the frame. It would be bad if they were a little low or a little high, because then the bung might go in at a bit of an angle, and then you're trying to mount the thing to an angle. So that's why this drill Rite tool works so well. So I'm going to attach it to the frame here now, and if you're watching on the video, you're seeing this. If you're listening to the podcast, I'm just getting the clamp locked on here, making sure that I have the bushing to the correct side for drilling the hole. So there I go. I've got it roughly in place right now. And what I use is a digital angle finder. And these things are fairly inexpensive. They're pretty cool. They're nice. And all I'm going to do is check for level on the frame. And if I know that the frame is level, then when I come over here and put this on the surface of the drill Rite, I can be very close to 90 degrees. Whoops. I can get very close to 90 degrees on my drill Rite. I'm just doing that right now. So I'm checking it. I'm getting 89.55 right there. So I'm going to tighten it down. And you know what? If I'm off by half a degree, I don't think that's going to cause an issue. So I'm good now. I've got the drill Rite lined up. Everything is good to go here. Yeah, this should work just fine. I drilled one hole the other day just to test it out and make sure that this was all going to work on camera. Ideally, I would have this frame anchored a little bit differently, maybe even just laying on its side, so I'm drilling down. In this case, though, because I'm filming, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try and hold on to the frame. Worked the other day. Put a little bit of lube on the drill bit just to make it easier on the bushing and to make it easier, of course, drilling the hole. And I'm going to get my drill bit into the bushing here. There we go. So I'm all lined up. I'm going to use my chest for a little bit of pressure here, and I'm going to drill my hole. So this is going nicely. I'm seeing a lot of material coming out there. And I think I'm just about through. There we go. And we're done. So now, if I just want to clean some of that oil off of there. And for those of you on the podcast, I'm just using my DeWalt rechargeable drill. Again, a guy wouldn't have to do this. It wouldn't be as critical if you were setting this up in a drill press with a vise, but getting a frame into a drill press is not the easiest thing you've ever done. So that swings out of the way, that comes off, and there we go. I now have 2 holes in the frame, and if I just check with this, those are going to work out very, very nice. What I'm doing is just checking my my mount for this solenoid, and yeah, that works out great. So that's the tool I wanted to show you. Again, Trick Tools is where I get it from. Now all I have to do is put in my 1/2 inch bit, take these up to 1/2 inch, and those bungs will just sink right in there. That's the drill Rite. I'm going to get set up for the MultiTool and show you the MultiTool grinder, and be back here in a couple minutes. All right, let's take a look at the MultiTool belt grinder. I guess maybe you might want to call it a belt sander. I call it a belt grinder, and I think that's what MultiTool refers to it as. So I'll give you a little bit of background, and I don't know for sure if I don't know for sure if the first distributor of these was actually Snap-on Tools. I'm not sure how that worked out for MultiTool, but at one time in the, I'm going to say, early 2000s, I wish I could pin it down to a year for you, but I was a franchisee and I have an idea when it was, but I can't pick the year. I know it would have been between 2000 and 2004 or 5, something like that. Anyway, MultiTool originally, or not originally, but at one time, distributed their product through Snap-on. And I don't know what that looked like in the US, but I know in Canada here, I've seen a picture of the actual MultiTool grinder with the belt attachment on it. And so a complete package, if you will. And I don't know if that was marketed in the US. I don't believe it was in Canada. I don't remember that being available to us. But what was available is the belt attachment, belt and sanding disc attachment for the grinder. So this pretty much went on any bench grinder that you had. And I even remember this came in a white box. They branded it Blue Point. Again, I don't know if it was Blue Point in the US or just in Canada, but because it wasn't a Snap-on manufactured product, it came from somebody else, then it was branded Blue Point. And white box, blue lettering, I can still picture the box. And when they were made available to us, I jumped on board. I thought they were a great idea. So I jumped on board and put a couple on my truck, and I had a little bit of success with them. And it wasn't too far along that all of a sudden I saw they were being discontinued, and the price that they were being offered to dealers at was really, really good. And I had been retailing them, so I knew what they were worth in the market. So I jumped on board and I bought up. I can't remember how many it was, and I don't want to inflate it or flower the issue. But I do know that I bought up a bunch at this good price, and so I've owned this whole setup since then, and I had this on my Snap-on truck strapped to the back door. And because I ran a big genset, a big diesel generator in my truck, I had lots of power to power it up, and I would power this thing up and let guys try different things, try grinding things right on the truck. Man, I sold a pile of these. So it was good. I'm sure that if you were to drive around central Alberta and kind of go shop to shop, you would find MultiTool grinder attachments all over the place. Speaking of the attachment, so for me, I had this bench grinder from, this is from Busy Bee Tools. It's a Craft X. It's nothing special. Do I wish I had the blue MultiTool one? Oh yeah. Yeah, that'd be super cool. I'd love to have one of those. But for whatever reason, whether it was CSA approval, I have no idea. Those weren't available to us. But anyway, I bought for myself, a kit and bolted it onto this bench grinder. And I am going to say that if you can buy the kit and bolt it on an existing bench grinder, this thing's been going hard for, 20 plus years now. And I use this tool a lot. I really do use it quite a bit. So it's been plugging along. I hate to say it, but a bench grinder is an electric motor. how wrong can you go with an electric motor? Okay, maybe some of them look nicer. Maybe some of them have better bearings, or maybe some even have better power consumption than others. I don't know, but other than horsepower ratings, an electric motor is an electric motor, whatever. Anyway, so I bolted it on here. I've been running this thing, like I say, 20 plus years for sure, maybe, boy, probably a lot closer to 25, and this thing is just rock solid. This is the 2-inch by 36-inch belt. I see that MultiTool also has a 2-inch by 48-inch. I'd really like to have one of those too. I'm not sure what the 48 would do for me that I can't do now. I'm thinking that when I'm using, and I'll show you how I do that, when I'm using the unsupported part of the belt for contouring and stuff, the longer one would just give you more flexibility and make that nicer. So it would be cool to have the 2x48. But anyway, 2x36 works great. I love it. No issue at all. Belt-wise, I wanted to show you a few things. And I apologize that this is a used belt. So I will say 3M. Yeah, and this one is a 3M as well. 3M products, I love them. I know you pay a little bit more, or certainly we do here. We seem to pay a little bit more for 3M. The engineering, the thought, the whatever goes into their products, the quality of material, whatever, they're just, man, they're dependable and they're good. And in terms of abrasives, they cut well and they finish well, and they just do what they're supposed to. So I'm really a big fan of 3M. And fortunately, pretty much all of the belts for this thing are available from 3M or in that brand. That's another thing that I will say now while we're talking about it is the belts, I have a hard time finding them here in Canada. 2x36 here is not a real common size. I've tried, local abrasive supplier stuff like that, and they say, oh, 2x36, yeah, that's not very common. Trick Tools has them. Love Trick Tools. They carry the MultiTool grinder. Good guys. They're into racing. They check all the boxes for me. I like those guys, and I like getting stuff from them. And that's usually where I order my belts from, even though it is a US thing, exchange on the dollar, shipping, whatever. They're a good outfit to deal with, and actually the other tool that I'm going to show you today came from them as well. So it's not just the belts that I get from them, but they have, from what I can tell, they have the complete lineup of MultiTool grinders and attachments. So they're good people to know about, good people to deal with. MultiTool themselves, just before I started this, I did a quick check on their website, and it looks like they have the full line of 3M belts for this grinder as well. So whether you get it from them, whether you get it from Trick Tools, I'm sure that MultiTool would actually be happy if you were getting them from Trick Tools, because I know they're a big distributor, or I think they're a significant distributor of the product. These belts are Scotch-Brite. Most of you are probably familiar, or if you're not, you want to be familiar with the little 2 and 3 inch roll-lock discs you can get for your air grinder, your little handheld grinder. Really, really handy. Clean up stuff like crazy. This is exactly the same material and the same grades, but rather than being in a disc, they've done it in a belt. And I find these, again, really handy. You can tell that I've really used this one. It's loaded up with whatever the heck I was doing. I don't even remember. I see a little bit of aluminum in there, so Might have been engine cases for, might have been cases on the Sportster actually. So haven't used it in a while, but when you need it, it's really good. This is again, same thing, a belt from 3M. 3M uses colors to code the grit of the belt. And I'll tell you, if you're going to use Rolox or if you're going to use these belts, I believe brown is coarse. The maroon is your medium. I honestly don't remember what color fine is, but I will tell you that there's this teal color and there's a gray color. And those are, I believe, super fine and ultra fine. Reason I'm telling you, if you're working on motorcycle engine parts, aluminum parts, please, please, please don't jump in with a coarse or a medium grit. Gasket surfaces and stuff, they chew fairly hard. I remember when I was doing the Snap-on thing, aluminum heads were becoming a big deal in the automotive industry back in the early 2000s. And guys would take a coarse Roloc disc to an aluminum head, and it would just chew up the surface, something awful. So I would strongly recommend, and because the speed of this and the way it cuts, everything else, I'd strongly recommend having the two finest grades of this belt. But these belts are really, really good for cleaning stuff up. Highly recommend having those around. You also have your typical, I don't know what you'd call these. I would call them, so these do different things. This is, they're both 3M. This is the green one, and I wonder if this is aluminum oxide. I forget which is which. I got to be honest with you. I don't pay that much attention. I know the maroon colored stuff I typically use in finer grits and seems to be a finer material. This green one is pretty coarse and digs pretty hard. I've obviously been using this to shape a piece of aluminum, and I'm not even sure. This one seems to be fairly loaded up with aluminum. You can maybe see, if I do that, you can maybe see the pieces of aluminum in this. And if I remember correctly, this will be a little bit hard on aluminum and it will pack up. I don't think the maroon ones tend to pack up with aluminum as much as the green ones do. But those are a couple different belts, and I try and just keep a selection of a bunch of stuff here and kind of play with it and see what works. Steel's not a problem. Stainless, mild steel, it's all fine. It's really just aluminum that you'll have to do a little playing around with. Maybe Trick Tools can tell us a bit about that. So those are just the common, your regular kind of grinding disc. Here's a disc for the flat side, and this is the same kind of product. So for grinding steel especially, very, very nice, work really well, cut fast, good. This is one of the discs for on the side here. These I don't have a problem getting locally. I picked these up at Busy Bee. Cheap, well, inexpensive, I should say. Inexpensive, easy to use, adhesive on the side. You probably should take the little table off the side to change them. I usually fight with it and change them with the table in the way. But it works out fine, so there's no problem changing those. This table, while we're here, I will mention, if you keep this at a 90-degree angle to your flat disc here, really comes in handy when you're doing the edges on stuff and everything. If you keep the piece flat on here, then you know you're getting a 90 degree. I've seen a lot of these without the table. I don't know. I've always liked it, and it's stuck around for this long, so I just kind of keep it on there. Another belt I want to show you here, and highly, highly recommend these. These are 3M Trizact, and they are the bomb. They are unbelievable. I'll tell you, when it comes to finishing engine cases or anything that you're gonna step up to polishing, these things are just fantastic for smoothing stuff out. The exhaust that I did for the XS650, really like using these. Super fine finish. If I was doing stainless, I think I'd probably go this way to get to that final stage, knocking down welds and stuff. They don't feel it, but oh man, they cut fast. They cut well, but really smooth. Just a nice fine pattern. I think this one. So this one is a 16 grit, and this one would be a 30, and this one says 80. So 80, 30, 16. This would be really nice for finishing stuff. I'm thinking anyway. But yeah, I keep a variety of these around. I've gone through a couple doing that exhaust. And again, because they're finer, thinner, a little more of a finesse piece, you do tend to go through these a little bit quicker, but boy, they work good. They're really, really nice. And then the last one that I keep around is kind of a polishing belt. And I'll be honest with you, you're not going to do a lot of polishing with these. This is definitely a step. Works well, to go from the Trizact to get ready for an actual buffing wheel. Seems to work fine for me. Do some surfaces sometimes to get into a spot. And I guess what this does is with the wheel at the front here, I'm just going to move that out of the way. With the wheel at the front, it gives you some structure to get into, curves or whatever where the buffing wheel may not give you the same kind of access. So these buffing belts, there we go. These buffing belts, like I say, they're not going to give you, I don't think they're going to give you a finished polish, but they certainly will help you get to that final stage. So that's what I have for belts here right now. And I think that's, you could go on MultiTool or Trick Tools website and see what they've got. I think this is most of it. I'm just going to move that off to the side. And while I'm thinking of it, I'm going to grab my safety glasses. So I will tell you, because I probably should, when I'm using this, always safety glasses. Always, always, always. Wear your safety glasses, guys and gals. It just makes sense. Like, you just don't get more than the two you're given, and the two eyes you're given, and you need to protect them. And as somebody who has taken a very fine piece of steel, a sliver in his eye, and had to go to the doctor and have it drilled out with my eye frozen, trust me, you don't want to go there. And I dodged a bullet. I was very, very fortunate, and I'm fine. That happened 40 some odd years ago, I'm fine. But, you know, it's just not worth it. So safety glasses for sure. I usually wear a dust mask, especially with aluminum. You don't really want that stuff in your system. I'm not going to do that today because if I put a mask on, you won't be able to hear me. And it's not like I'm going to grind a lot of stuff here today. I just want to show you a couple different techniques and how I use the machine and stuff. Particle mask, and I would normally wear a hat, but Aunt Helen, who is my dad's sister, Aunt Helen is 96 right now, still lives on her own, independent and everything. See her all the time. Well, not all the time. Don't see her as often as I'd like. But anyway, that's another story. We see Aunt Helen regularly, and she watches my YouTube videos. And one time I wore a hat in a video, and she let me know that that really is not appropriate, that I need to lose the hat. So normally I'd wear a hat just to keep my head clean, but I won't wear it today in case Aunt Helen watches this episode. So there you go. Gloves are a good idea. I usually just wear a pair of nitrile gloves so that I don't get all the grinding stuff into my skin, but very thin. I can still feel everything I'm doing. Doesn't protect you from heat. When you're doing small parts, you're probably going to want welding gloves or something because this thing will heat pieces up for sure. Stainless is really good that way. So while I have the Trizact belt on here, I'll show you a couple different things that I use it for. Sorry to step off camera there. Move that out of the way. Being that I just did the exhaust here recently, I am going to show you. We're just about done. I have a little work to do down on the end here. There, I'll pick that up so that you can see it, and I'll try not to get too close to the camera and cut off the top of my head. I have to do this round part down in here, and I will be doing that with the Trizact belt. The other thing we did is we welded on a couple bungs, and this is just to keep the exhaust, the two pipes, we're going to tie them together with a little strap, if you will, between these two bungs. I found that there was a lot of vibration in the pipe if it was just hanging on its own. So we're going to tie the two of them together. Hopefully that reduces the vibration. If we're still feeling like it's going to vibrate some, then I may tie this into the rear motor mount. And the way we set these up is these are directly in line with that motor mount, so that'll work fine. But on this one, I was going to show you, and hopefully I can get close to that. So the bung is welded on, but you see that little run of weld right over here? As it turned out, I had done such a good job of grinding this with the Trizact belt that when Tim went to weld this for me, he didn't realize that that's right where we welded two pieces together. And as soon as he hit it, he realized, oh, that's where the weld is, and he had to run a little extra weld. So I would not, with this machine, I would not try and do the weld around the bung. That's definitely a hand operation. It's just not going to be comfortable on here. But that little bit of a weld that runs there, I can do that on the belt for sure. When I was doing these, what I like about this machine, using the end where the wheel is, or the spool, whatever you want to call it, this is really good for shaping material, for cutting stuff down, whatever. On round stuff like this, where you don't want to flatten it out, I really like using the bottom down here. And I made this stand, and it works very well for this machine. You can adjust the height. It's all good. The one thing in hindsight that I would have done differently is I would have made this so it could pivot 90 degrees. Because if you could pivot this 90 degrees to the back and stand this belt up, would be fantastic. Because then you'd get this unsupported piece down here, and you would be able to do things on there more easily than what I can do here. So that's a change I would make. I'm not going to throw gloves on right now. We're not going to do that much. But I'll just give you an idea of how I would approach this weld. So again, using the bottom of that belt, because it'll shape to that round pipe or tube. So that's going to take a little work, but I think you can see how that works out. And it's really just a matter of using the edge of the belt to get close, and to hit that high spot. That's come down a long way there now. That's not going to take much to finish off at all. So that's how I would do something like that. I think that's the only piece. No, maybe it's not. The fender. So once I get the fender, everything I'm doing to the inside of the fender here, and I went through that on another episode. You can watch that if you want. But what I'm doing on the inside of the fender, that's all done by hand with a cutoff tool on an air grinder. So that's totally different. But when it comes to finishing this fender, I'm going to use the belt sander to clean this all the way down. And, this is kind of rough. It'd work for filler. It'd be fine. But the fender's been in the shop for a while, and, we've been handling it. That's the other reason for the gloves, is it typically keeps your oily skin off of a finished surface once you've sanded it. So I kind of went at that end a little bit already, but just to give you an idea, again, the top of the belt here, if you try to use it, there's this flat plate underneath, and that flat plate isn't going to allow much flex in the belt. But on the bottom side here, you can get more flex in the belt. It's going to shape to this better. So again, you can get a pretty good idea of what's happening there. That's real nice. That's going to give me a nice surface for filler. It's showing me as well. You can really see now where the weld is, and that it is still a little bit high. And I can feel it there. It's not as noticeable in this coarse grinding, but it gets really noticeable once you smooth it out a bit. So that's where I'm going to need some filler to just get this radius just perfectly when I put it together. So good. using the MultiTool that way. Trizact belts. This is just a side cover that I'll be using on one of the engines down the road. This one's got some bad scars in it and stuff, but to give you an idea, and this is an area where I'm more likely to use the end of the wheel. And if I need to have a little bit of flex on that, I can run it on the top. And again, you can see how that is starting to get rid of those marks. Nice thing, these covers are plenty thick enough. These scars are not that deep. We'll be able to get that totally smoothed out and get rid of those scars. That'll be real nice. We'll be able to redo the Yamaha in there, get some fresh paint in there after we get it cleaned out and stuff. So between, the Trizact initially, then probably taking the belt polisher to it, and then stepping over to a buffing wheel. And I know some of you watching are going to say, "Oh, what's he doing with that buffing wheel on there?" I leave this on here because I don't think that's not right. I very, very seldom ever need a grinding stone mounted on here. This does everything pretty much that I would ever use a grinding stone for. So this is my dirty, rough kind of polishing pad. If I need to just polish something up for a second to see how it's going to look, touch something up, whatever, I don't care if there's some dirt or gunge or grinding residue in here. This is not my final polishing wheel. So don't worry. This is not how I do a final polish. It's just I leave something on there to balance it out, and I use this way more often than I'd actually use a grinding stone on there. Here's another interesting piece that this is the jockey shift or hand shifter for the Yamaha, and just to give you an idea. So I've lengthened it because I wanted to get it higher up on the Yamaha. This is a perfect piece. What we're going to do, we're pretty much going to keep this front one straight. This is the straight one. This side's going to have a little bit of taper to it. So to do that taper on here, I would draw a line and then use the disc and just work it along here using the table to keep it square and knock it down that way. This disc works really, really well for doing that kind of stuff. This little weld here, where we extended the piece, it's not going to work very well to try and use the disc. You might be able to use the disc on the edges without getting into too much trouble. But for me, this is a perfect use of the belt, of the wheel at the front. And I'm just going to put a better belt on than this one for doing that kind of grinding. So I'm going to unplug my grinder just because I'm that kind of guy. I don't want the darn thing starting up while I'm trying to change the belt. Sorry, I'm off camera. I'll be right back. So I would think for this, What grit is this? This is a 120. This is a nice grit for what I'm going to do there. This belt, all you need to do, this has some kind of a spring-loaded mechanism here. So you push that back and lock it in, and then you take your belt off and put your new belt on, and there's a release right here. So that pops the spring load out. There's an adjustment on this side that adjusts the tracking of the belt. So when you start it up, it's just a matter of moving this arm up and down and centering it on the wheel. That's pretty good right there. So again, just to show you what that looks like. And I guess I should be talking while I'm doing this, but I get focused and totally forget. So, a little bit more work to do on that, but that's where we're at now. So that's coming along real nice. Like I say, a little bit more smoothing. Then I'll probably go at it with a Trizact belt before I take it for chroming. This will be plated. So I'll take it, use the Trizact on it, probably round the edges a little bit just to smooth them out. There's certainly some, a few marks down in here that I'll be able to work out with this. But that'll turn out just fine. This is another piece that I have. This is the strap for the exhaust pipes. And rather than just leaving it with square corners and stuff, I've marked it with a radius there. So it'll kind of match the head of a button head Allen type bolt, chrome. So that'll work well. So I've radiused that. And again, what I would do here is use the disc and work this back and forth. And I would need to get some welding gloves because this is getting warm already. But you can see it doesn't take very long at all to knock that down. So just using the disc on the side, I'm just going to do that. I'll probably use the belt with a very fine belt or maybe one of the Trizacts on there. Again, just hit the corners so it's nice and smooth. Make that all tidy. And another thing I'm working on, and as I say, aluminum, you got to be a little bit careful with aluminum that you don't breathe it in and all that kind of stuff. This is that quarter or 3/8? I think it's quarter. These are two pieces that I'm making for the bottom motor mount on the Yamaha. Originally, it has a couple really ugly pieces welded to the frame. And there's a rod that goes through the bottom of the engine cases right across from side to side. And I really didn't like the look of it. And they rust underneath, and there's all kinds of stuff goes on there. So anyway, what I decided to do was weld a couple bungs into the frame and then make these pieces, and that rod that supports the engine will run through the top here. These two holes will be bolted to the frame. So this is the piece that I made up, and that's been totally shaped on the MultiTool. That's how I made that. What I did once I had this one done is I marked it out in some blue dye, and machinist blue, is that what they call that? Anyway, I've marked it out, and now I'm going to go ahead and grind this one out. Initially, a pretty coarse disc, and then the Trizact belt, again, just makes that really, really nice. To get these curves, that's where this wheel works so well. You can get a nice shape in there. It'd be nice sometimes if there was a tighter wheel on the end. Be nice sometimes if there was a bigger wheel on the end. But overall, this one is pretty good and gives you a lot of versatility in shaping stuff. That, I think, is pretty much everything that I wanted to tell you about the MultiTool. I've seen videos on Instagram and stuff. MultiTool puts them up. I've seen videos of guys doing their lawnmower blades, knife making, and that seems to be a pretty popular hobby. This thing, I guess, for making knives, I don't make knives, but for making knives, this thing is just super handy. Like I say, we use it all the time for fabbing little parts here and cleaning stuff up, and getting stuff ready for chrome. I really, really like it. I would say that in my shop, if you ask me, Bruce, what's the best bang for your buck? Which tool in your shop has the best value for what you paid for it? That is number one. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Anyway, that's it for the multi-grinder. I'm going to say thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed, really appreciate it if you'd subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, by all means, you can leave me those in the comments section. Would love it if you gave me a thumbs up, and don't forget to ring the little bell to turn on notifications, because there is the Build Stuff episodes that we do as well. And we do Speed Kolor every couple of weeks. That's it for now. Thank you very much for being here with me. Appreciate it. And build safe, ride safe, be cool. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks.